Good morning and welcome to Mass Memorial Virtual Sunday School. Theme for the quarter, Faith that Pleases God. Unit 2, Learning about Faith, Sunday, January 28th, 2024. Lesson titled, Using Our Unique Gifts. Comes from the book of Romans, chapter 12, verses 3 through 8. Very short verses for this lesson. Our key verse, having then gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us. Romans 12, 6a, King James Version. Our aim is to evaluate a life of faith versus conformity to the word. Value the gifts that God gives, which invites transformation. And to identify a spiritual gift and consider one tangible expression of using that gift in service to God. Our lesson background. Here we're in the New Testament, and Paul the Apostle is the author of the book of Romans, and we know him to be one of God's Christ's most devout believers and followers. And Paul wrote this book while in Corinth toward the close of his third missionary journey. And he actually was on his way to Palestine to deliver offering for the poor in Jerusalem. And so we know that Paul wrote the majority of the books in the New Testament, and Romans is just one of them. The book of Romans, written by Paul around AD 57, 58, to the Christians in Rome. At the time, Rome was the capital of the Roman Empire. The overall theme of the book of Romans is God's righteousness, and that God justifies condemned sinners by grace through Jesus Christ. And in this lesson, it talks about spiritual gifts. But I just wanted to turn to the next page, the book of Romans, chapter 11, 1 through 11, dealt with the theological doctrine of justification of faith in Christ alone, whereas chapters 12 through 16 presents the practical application of that doctrine in believers' lives, individually and collectively. So that will be the source of our lesson. And on that note, we can go back to the previous page of spiritual gifts. And so spiritual gifts are those talents and attributes that God has graciously endowed us with to do his work. And when God has given us a gift, he wants us to use it in his service. And when we do that and we use it for the right reason, the use of those gifts will bring joy and energy to whatever we are doing and even to ourselves. And it transforms us, it transforms the people around us, it transforms whatever we use those gifts for. Our lesson today will focus on the practical outworkings of spiritual gifts and practical godliness. This lesson deals with a lot on what a spiritual gift is, how we can use it, and the benefit of that gift. And even though these are very short verses, they are probably some of the most powerful verses in the New Testament that relate to us today. And it talks these verses deal particularly with what God has given us as a gift. Our first title is Spiritual Gifts, the Correct Attitude, Romans 12, 3 through 5. And I will read Romans 12, 3 through 5. For I say, through the grace given unto me, to every man that is among you, not to think of himself more highly than he ought to think, but to think soberly according as God has dealt to every man a measure of faith. Romans 12, 4. For as we have many members in one body, and all members have not the same office. Romans 12:5. So we being many are one body in Christ, and everyone members of one another. This is so important in using the gifts that God has provided for us. Verse 3 reminds us that even some of us don't know what our gifts are. So we take the attitude that, I know what I'm doing. This is my gift. This is what I want to do. And we need to not equate a spiritual gift with holding office or having any certain position in the church. It has nothing to do with spiritual gifts. Now, what you can do with a spiritual gift is use that spiritual gift in the service of God by enhancing the relationship within the body, which is what verses 4 and 5 talk about. So, in order for us to have the right attitude, we must first recognize and acknowledge that God is the source of our gifts. Now, sometimes we don't know what our gifts are. And this is when we need to really go to God and ask him what our gifts are. Show us the right way. And it's like if you take the body for instance, it's the most amazing machine there is. It far supersedes the computer. Anything that man has made. The human body is the most perfected machine that there is. And reason we can say that is the body works as one unit. And we all know when one part of that body is not working properly, it throws the whole thing off. If your knees are out of order, it causes you not to be able to walk sometime. You might be in a lot of pain. So everything has to work as a unit. And when we think of using our gifts in the service of God, we want our gifts to be a part of making that unit the very best unit that it can be. And within that body or that unit in Christ, God has given each person a gift. He might have endowed some better than others, may have given one person one talent and not one person another talent. But every member is a part of that body. But sometimes we become jealous and envious of someone else's gifts. And this is oftentimes when we equate liking to do something as a gift. Just because you like to cook does not mean it's your gift. Or just because you like to wash dishes doesn't mean that's your gift. And so this would certainly cause issues in the body. If you think that, I've been Sunday school superintendent for 50 years, that's my gift. That's not necessarily my gift. You have to ask God what that gift is. And so sometimes because we like to do something or we've held a position for ages, we figure that, God has set us there and that's what we want to do. But oftentimes this is our own making. So let's not equate the spiritual gift with what we like to do, because it doesn't always work that way. And even when we think of singing, some people have a gift and some people think they have a gift to sing. And so this all goes back, and using the choir as an example. If you have a choir, a beautiful choir works as a unit, and they can have different parts, but they come together in harmony. But if you have one person who cannot hold a tune, that person can throw the whole choir off because they're there thinking they want to be heard, but they're out of tune. And so this is how these spiritual gifts work to enhance the service of what God has for us to do. And this is where our attitude can be a hindrance in using God's gifts in the service of members of one another. Good gifts that have been received from God, bring about a change in attitude and a joy that you may not only feel, but you can recognize that joy. And anytime God gives you something, you should use it to really worship him, to bring about change. And if you're doing, it's like being on a job for 40 years and have hated that job, just being there. That might not be the job that you were supposed to have. Maybe you stayed for different reasons. But excuse me, our lesson let us know that spiritual gifts come from God, and that he didn't give everybody the same gift. And we thank him for that, because um, there would be no difference in people and attitude if he gave everybody the same gift. And sometimes, as I mentioned before, we get jealous because some gifts bring about special attention, special recognition. And so this is where our human uh, thoughts come into play. And this is when we become jealous. Well, how come that person get the recognition for this or that or whatever? But that's because they have used that gift in the service of God, or used that gift according to the measure of the gift that they've been given. Our next subtitle, spiritual gift. Here again, we're talking about the correct use. And that's from Romans 12, 6 through 8. I will read Romans 12, 6 through 8. Romans 12, 6. Having then gifts differing according to the grace that is given to us. For the prophecy, let us prophesy according to the proportion of faith. Romans 12, 7. Our ministry, let us wait on our ministry. Or he that teacheth on teaching. Romans 12, 8. Or he that exhorteth on exhortation. He that giveth, let him do it with simplicity. He that ruleth with diligence. He that showeth mercy with cheerfulness. Um, this These three verses are so important in terms of the correct use of what God has given us. And when we talk about everybody having a different gift, but they come together as a unit to work in the service of God. And Paul talks about every person has their particular gift. If it's prophesying, then you should prophesy. And there's different levels of gifts, the different kinds of gifts. But whatever that gift, they should be used to acknowledge the work and do the work in the kingdom of God. Um, Oftentimes, excuse me, we get in trouble because we don't know what our gifts are. And verse 12 and 7 implies that sometimes you have to wait to find out what your gifts are. You know, it's like working with children. Everybody who works with children is not meant to be a teacher. Um, Teachers, good teachers, are really a special gift. You know, good ministers are called and are blessed with special gifts, special talents. But sometimes we don't want to wait on, we're in a hurry to get somewhere, we're in a hurry to do something. So we don't want to wait till God reveal what our gifts are. And this is where we oftentimes get in trouble. And when we get to that level, oftentimes we misuse what we think are our gifts, or we misuse the gift that God has given us. Um, Ministry is always not about making money. It's about working with people, being able to be cheerful and show mercy, which is what's in our verse 12 and 8. And being able to take on a different personality. You know, so many people are angry today. And you have to ask yourself, how can you get out of the bed angry in the morning? What is that about? I have never understood that. You ought to be grateful, first of all, that you got up out of the bed. And then you're going to be angry before you even start your day off. And so sometimes we just need to stop and wait, as our previous scriptures. We just need to wait and see what God has in store for us. And it talks about giving and showing. When it says giving, that means to see the needs and generously sacrifice and some of the things that we possess. And in these gifts are used in administration. They should show enthusiasm, constancy, and consistency. And mercy means that we should have a genuine concern for another's well-being. When you have received these gifts through Christ, they are properly used, then they become a joy. They give you a good feeling. They bring joy to others, and they bring unity and peace to whatever organization that you're a member of. You know, some people live to sow bad seeds and sow discord among other people. And sometimes this is often due because they don't know what their purpose is in the organization. Some people don't know what their purpose is on this earth. And this is when you really need to go to God in prayer. You can't see, well, why am I here? What am I doing? I don't have $10 to buy gas. I don't have $5 to buy chips. But you need to stop, as we said previously, pray and ask God, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? And sometimes you need to take that same attitude when you have a job. If it's not for you, it will not work. You will be miserable many times. But when it's for you and God has a gift for you, no one can take that gift away. I know some of the older people used to say, get your education, because that's the one thing they can't take away from you. If you have something in your head that's useful, they can't take it away. They might try, but they can't take it away. It's yours. It's the gift that God has given you. And so we should remember that as we go through life and ask for what this gift is. You know, he will give it to you. He will show you what your gift is supposed to be. Doing program is not always a gift. It might not be your gift. It might be somebody else's gift. To be a president in an organization. Some people want to be president because of prestige. Others want to be president because they have something to offer. They have a gift that can bring that organization together. They have a gift that can understand the people of that organization. It's like in church. Why would you want to be, say, a minister when you know that's not your calling? Why would you want to be steward? A better example is, why would you want to be a financial secretary, the person handling the money, if you can't count? If you can't, in this day, if you can't use a spreadsheet, it's not advantageous to want the position of being in a financial situation, because that might not be your gift. And when it's not your gift, believe you me, you can mess up some money. You can mess up some money if you want to have that position, because it's a high, powerful position. And also, you may have that position for the wrong reason, because you won't know what everybody giving. That's the wrong reason. When you have that special gift of being a financial person, it works out beautifully. It is not stressful, and it's very meaningful, and you enjoy doing it. And also, when you have these special gifts and these special situations, sometimes these special gifts allow you to communicate with people better. It doesn't mean you communicate with people and then go spread it on the Facebook or spread it in the newspaper about what that person is doing. It means that that person can know they have someone to go to, and their story will remain with that person. I always say, if you don't want somebody to know, don't tell anybody. Just take it to God. Because just as sure as you let one person know, I guarantee you there'll be a second person that know. So, our gifts is not always running things, being in charge. It, this lesson also lets us know when it says he has given us a portion according to his grace. A portion. That might mean he just gave you one little thing that you can do well. He might give you the gift of writing a poem, and you may be able to do that well. So it doesn't have to be a huge gift, it can be a small gift. And so this is really a good lesson, especially in this day and age. I hear so many people say, sometimes they leave a job, they don't want anything else to do with a computer. They don't want to keep up with any technology. Um, you know, God also gives you that ability to want to learn, to want to know. And sometimes we decide among ourselves that I'm not getting into the technology field, but it's almost imperative nowadays that you have some sense of how to use technology. And so here again, you find people that can do things, they can make movies, they can even, I think of Brother Nelson, and we owe him a debt of gratitude, because if we had to pay somebody to do that job, I'm sure Mass Memorial would not get it done, because that's an expensive uh, occupation. And so we should be grateful, because he obviously has a gift that we don't have. I wouldn't want to do it. I couldn't do it. I probably could do it, but I wouldn't want to do it. But, when you see people get a joy out of what they're doing and the skills that they're providing, that's special. That's very special. And so we should remember that. That last Romans 12:8, that last part that said um, that a person that shows mercy should do it with cheerfulness. And this means to be genuinely concerned with others, not to be genuinely concerned so you can get in their business and find out which shoe they put on the wrong foot, but it means to be honest about what you're saying to them. You know, um, it's like people will say, "Well, if you need me, call me." So the person might need to go to pick up a prescription. Oh, I can't do it now. I can do it tomorrow. They call tomorrow. Well, I got something else to do. So why did you make that offer if you weren't genuine about it? We need to show concern and well-being. And even in a church family, we need to show concern. But even in this day and age, that seems to be tied to who that person is. Are we genuinely concerned about everyone? Are we genuinely want to show mercy towards everyone? Or is it because that person is the chairman of the steward board, or because that person is the pastor's assistant, that we want to show mercy and genuine concern? So this has been a good lesson to let us know that there is a correct use of the gifts that God has provided us with. And we should be cautious in how we use those gifts. And that's what this lesson is about. With some practical application. Um, again, I say this lesson has endowed us with a spiritual gift. And many Christians don't know what those gifts are. And we need to be very aware that when we have these gifts, they are to be used for the building of the kingdom, for the service of God, to help the flows. Ministry flows smoothly when each of us know our gifts And we don't know, we should pray and ask and wait for God to reveal our gift. And when it says ministry, the service, even within the church, you can't have the president of the missionary interfering with the choir, telling the choir how to sing. Or you can't have a person who can't keep their own books trying to keep the books of the church or the other organization that they belong to. So sometimes things don't go smoothly because we step outside our arena. As I always say, we step outside our lane, get in somebody else's lane, and then we get told to step back, and then we're mad for 6 years, 7 years. But when you have that special gift and you use it in the building of the kingdom, then things will flow smoothly. Oftentimes, our gifts should also be used to build up others, and things. When we build up other people, things will progress. There are people who can't acknowledge and be proud of someone else's accomplishments. This is so prevalent in our society that you'll hear the grumbling. Well, how can they do this? How come their kids can go to Harvard and mine have to go to LCC? There are people who won't be proud of someone else's accomplishment. That is a danger, both in our personal lives, in our church, and in our community. When you cannot recognize the good that someone else is doing. And here again, believe it or not, that is also a gift. To be able, you know, when we say gifts come from God, this is why they work. This is why they keep us joyful. They keep us cheerful because this is something God has given us. When we claim that we know what our gifts are, and we think that we have set our own self apart, it's always conflict. No matter what you do, it's always conflict. Paul gives many examples of what happens when we decide on our own choices of gifts because of our arrogance. He simply states a person ought not think more highly of themselves, but think according to what God has dealt. This is one of the most powerful statements in the Bible, to tell you the truth, because if you go back through the history of the Old Testament, the kings got in trouble, Cain got in trouble because they thought more highly of themselves than they should have. And it led to the downfall of a family. It has led to downfalls of nations. And we see this right now in our own society. People think so highly of themselves, they think they can go out and commit a crime and don't have to pay for it. They think they can go set the house on fire and don't be charged with arson. So this is a good example of this verse, people, and it's all due to who you think you are. And some of us don't realize we are nothing in God's sight. We're just a little speck. Where do you sit in the realm of the people on earth? You're just a little speck. But that small speck can wreak havoc when they think that they should be in charge. If you look at the many dictatorships, that's what that's about. It's about arrogant and being narcissistic. You're thinking, I'm it. Nobody's better than me. A love of yourself to the point that you want all the power. And this often doesn't just start to happen as you get older, but it actually can start in childhood. And we don't train kids to say thank you anymore. And I was always taught the person coming into the house is the one that says good morning or good evening. But now kids come in the house and look at you and keep on going about their business. They don't ask anything. They don't even say good morning when they get up out of the bed. And so here again, all of these things, when Paul talks about being arrogant and forgetting that you have been dealt a measure of faith, a measure, a gift, and that gift is not something that you're supposed to use to take advantage of other people. Um, this lesson, excuse me, in this day and age, people say, well, if they don't do it my way, I'm gonna take all the resources and they can't do it anyway. And so um, we are people that like to be visible. Some of us, there's some of us who don't want to be visible, but there's a great number of us who want the world to know what we did yesterday, the day before, last year, and the year before. When I think about the social medias, the Instagrams, the Facebook, and I think of the Old Testament and the New Testament, how disastrous it would have been back then. I mean, to know what they were doing back then. If you think of the Virgin Mary and her birth, can you imagine what that would have looked like on Facebook? A disaster. So sometimes, you need to step back and realize that you don't always have to be visible. The most powerful people in the world are usually the ones that are quiet and work in the background. Not the people up that want to be seen. Every time there's a program, they got to be the chairperson or they got to be the MC. Power is often not as visible as you think it is. And we get in trouble because we associate power with being seen or being heard. And that's not always true. So our gifts are not always associated with being seen or heard. You don't know what that looks. Sometimes people say, well, they just come to church every Sunday and sit on the pew. Yeah, but they might have already displayed their gift throughout the week. Maybe they went to 25 nursing homes and prayed and sung with people. You don't know what that person is doing. Just because they don't display their gifts to you doesn't mean they're not doing anything. Maybe they bought 5 kids a pair of shoes, or maybe they brought somebody a coat or a hat. You don't know what that person is doing. So we don't need to judge people by because we don't know what they're doing. People like to know what other people are doing, and people like to know what's new. One thing in this day and age, people, and I'm not sure what is the reason for this. People will often take pictures of food, especially the younger people. And I said, what is that about? What is that going to tell somebody? I just don't get it. But there again, it may be not for me to know. But one of the main takeaways in this lesson is that all believers have an essential role to play in fulfilling God's plan for not just the church, but the community, the family. Everybody has a role to play. And sometimes we know what that role is, and sometimes we don't. And this is when we oftentimes have to go to God. So as we move further into 2024, let us take time out to look at the gift that God has given us, and not something that we want or something that we think of as a gift. Let's go to Him and ask Him, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? How can I get started doing it? It's like driving to New York. Back in the day, there was no, you know, uh, satellite direction. You had to get a road. You had to get a paper map and plot it out. If you didn't, you wasn't gonna get there. You're gonna make some turns that you shouldn't have made. So it just says we need to prepare. We need to ask Him, what is it that I'm supposed to be doing? So as we think of this lesson throughout the year, um, it's so important that each year, you know, they always say when you do the same old thing, you get the same old result. So sometimes you need to ask God for what that gift is, and you might find that you need to step outside the box. to fulfill that gift because you've been sitting in this one spot doing the same thing for 20 years and being miserable for 20 years and making everybody else miserable for 20 years. But when that gift comes from God, there's a joy in what you do and a joy in receiving that gift. So let us go throughout the year using God's gift to do his work, whether it be helping others, whether it be in the church or the community or school. And on that note, I'm going to ask that you continue to join us for our virtual presentation with Sister Griffin and myself. And hopefully these lessons have been eye openers or have been beneficial to you in some manner. So on that note, we ask that you take care and have a wonderful rest of the year. Thank you.